Hello, welcome to Truth Not Tradition online Bible study for May 27th, 2015. I'm Tony Smario. I'm here with my father, Brother Sal. Good morning, Dad.
Oh, good morning. Thanks for having me, Tony.
Thanks for joining me. I want to do something different this week. We've been going through 2 Corinthians, and the last few days I've been had my attention on what's going on right now in America with this deployment of all the armaments throughout the South and the building of these FEMA shelters, these storm shelters. And, well, I have a feeling, it seems to me, all the things I've been studying, that we're truly preparing for a disaster in our country right now. And those that are on the internet, especially if you view the Christian sites, well, boy, it's just full of warnings about, as it always is, I suppose, but there's something significant to me in this moment. There's all these warnings about an asteroid that's supposed to hit in the Atlantic Ocean. Everybody seems to know about it. The Russians know about it. All the Christians know about it. And that's because I suppose there's what appears to be a prophecy. A man named Ephraim, I don't know his last name. He's from Puerto Rico.
Rodriguez, wasn't it?
I can't think of it at the moment, but he's from Puerto Rico. It's if you look it up on the internet, you won't be able to avoid it. It's apparently a prophecy from 5 years ago, June of 2010. This guy writes several letters to inform, especially the governor of Puerto Rico, that this event is going to happen, and he needs to do his duty as a Christian and tell the people, even though the governments aren't telling the people. It's very convincing, I thought, and it made me, it really drew me in, because the prophecy seems very convincing, and the timing seems a little too coincidental with the sudden buildup of all this FEMA structure. And then there's other anomalies going on. Anomalies, let's just call them that for the moment, so we can try and figure out a sane way, a realistic way of putting the pieces together. So you have these other things going on, like a small earthquake, 4.8, not that small, in Nevada, just north of Lake Mead. And it turns out that in the next 2 days, the whole level of Lake Mead seems to have dropped about 9 feet.
2 feet the first day and 10 feet the next.
Yeah, okay, something like that. I think it's a little less, but anyway, it's a significant drop. It was about 2 feet the first day and about 10 feet the second day. Just sudden drops, according to their own website, not some sort of conspiracy theorist channel, but according to the website of the Lake Mead official government water report of their day. Every day they have a graph that shows their water level, and it just suddenly dropped. And there's sinkholes also have been happening, a bunch of strange sinkholes in the earth. If you're not aware of this HARP technology, that, I mean, I'm pretty sure everybody is. If you're so isolated from that, you might do a little research. It's another one of the things you can't get away from. There's lots of false information, a lot of hype. The government's always going to kill you with all this stuff, which I don't think is true. I think that's the counter story to keep us from really investigating, what is it? And HARP is nothing but an array of antennas in Alaska and now in many other places around the world that shoots radio waves into the upper atmosphere and warms it. And in doing so, it creates high pressure. It creates a change in the localized pressure so that other wind has to go around it. It affects weather patterns. It's been called a weather machine. The proponents of it say it's just simply technology. It's something developed, of course, for the benefit of mankind, as well as national security. But the other side points to the fact that that this thing has the power to alter the weather, and it seems to be used for those purposes. And anyway, there's a lot of evidence that this thing really does give someone a power over the weather. Now, they created a monsoon in the Vietnam War and bragged about it. It's military history. It's not a conspiracy theory. They weather as a weapon and weather control has been going on for a whole generation. It's just, as I've often said, the things they talk about in the media, the things they want you to hear for one reason or another, either because they're trying to detract you from hearing something else, or because they want to plant a particular idea or philosophy, ideology in your mind. But anything that's on the TV and anything that's reported a lot, they want you to know it, or they don't mind you knowing it. Most likely they want you to know it. And that's why I say a lot of this stuff, if you're going to go research, if you don't already, it took me years to get savvy on the internet to not just believe every YouTube channel up there. I mean, YouTube, Google, this is Council on Foreign Relations stuff. I mean, these are owned by the people that run the Western world. And they're the most effective social media. YouTube's one of the, YouTube and Facebook, but YouTube is just one of the most active social mediums it is in the world. Everybody's there. And so, and they promote that. They let us know that. They want us to know how great it is. And so that's where everybody gets their information. And I say that 90% of it is misinformation, and it's very difficult until you get the feel for navigating it. If I came across a video of ours, I would immediately suspect it, just because it was religious in overtone, and knowing how all the religious institutions of our world, of our Western world, are completely infiltrated at the highest levels by the CFR and the people that have their own agenda for us. For this world and everything that's coming to this head that Christians are waiting for. I mean, I'm really not trying to scare anybody, because if you believe in Jesus, it should be an uplifting. This is all part of our preparing for this final coming, knowing we're in the days, looking at the signs, just like Jesus told us. You can read the signs of the weather. You can read the signs of the time. And he said, when will all this happen? Will there be earthquakes in diverse places? But these are the beginnings of sorrows, and then you're going to be handed over to be persecuted for my name. So we're plotting all this on that timeline, of course. This is what we're watching for. And I'm trying to show people in a way how we're getting to this being handed over for his name's sake, and who's doing the handing over to who. What does that all mean? Well, certainly it's the Jews that are getting handed over for his name's sake, because theoretically the Christians are gone, right? Although I have something to share with you today that throws a little light on that. That's just something new that we haven't been talking about for 20 years. But what we have been talking about for 20 years is how the rapture of the church is probably not going to be a gargantuan event. judging from the scripture in Revelation that says the Philadelphian church are of little strength, which means little in numbers, not in power. They're small in numbers, and the doors being held open for them. The Laodicean church are the ones that claim the name of Christ, but they're lukewarm, and he spits them out of his mouth. Doesn't mean he doesn't save them all later, but he comes back and spits them out of his mouth, which means rejection, right? The left behind concept. So of course there's those that are eligible for this Revelation scripture as being persecuted in the name of Christ, that he told the Jews of his time, you'll be handed over to be persecuted for my name. But in speaking to them, he's not speaking to his apostles, the Christians. He's speaking to the Jews who are awaiting. We who are watching all this are awaiting this time in history and this moment when they're going to find the Messiah. And how's that going to happen? Well, geez, what did we just notice in our search this past week? Anybody ever heard of that Rabbi Kurdish? What was his name? Darn it, now I don't have it. One of the most exciting things I found in the 30 years that and this is, these are the buttes. This is not conspiracy theory, and here's how you know. I mean, this is not misinformation. This is just inconvenient information for a lot of people on the Jewish side. Christians should love it. This rabbi, 108 years old, right? Maybe everybody knows this but me, but I'm very excited that I found out. He's on his deathbed, has a vision, writes it down, tells him, don't open this for a year. I've seen the Messiah. I know who he is. He's coming soon. And he dies. A year later, they open the note as the rabbi. This is a respected rabbi now, and you find out, at the funeral when 200,000 people are taking him to his rest. And now they open the thing a year later, and who's the Messiah the rabbi met? Yeshua, Joshua, Jesus. Wow, right? Wow. 108-year-old rabbi on his deathbed says, man, I saw him. I saw the Messiah. I know who he is. So, that's a pretty big breakthrough for me, because this is not something you fake. You can't go get a Jew that's been around 100 years that everybody knows is a respectable Pharisee of his time, that he suddenly on his deathbed is going to tell you Jesus, and he's just famous. What, CNN put him up to it? Rupert Murdoch. So the Zionist movement, there's just no explanation. The man thinks he saw Jesus. The Jesus told him Jesus was the Messiah, and he was coming soon. So there's this one little piece of this puzzle I want to paint today of what's going on right now in our Christian world, why we're lukewarm. What is all this warning? How come all the Christians know there's a meteor coming? What's this prophecy? This Puerto Rican guy that claims a prophecy from 5 years ago. Well, I find out today in some of my research that the truth is that weaponizing space is how they've referred to it for a generation now. That they've been in the process of weaponizing space for a generation now, and that the things that they show that we know we have now are already put down the concept that we've got an unexpected meteor gonna hit us, because we've already weaponized space to the point that we can shoot meteors and missiles and different things out of the air. And that what else these many weaponized satellites do for us in space is provide the means, the other end, if you can imagine, for these radio transmitters on Earth, these microwave towers that can shoot microwaves up into the atmosphere. These satellites, which if what I saw was accurate, it was a government site. I suppose saying that, we have no reason to believe it's truthful, but it may be accurate. in showing all the satellites that are in space. There's a website now, and you can navigate around the globe and see all the satellites that are in space, like one of those backyard constellation programs that show you the stars. Well, they have one that shows you the satellites, and there's thousands of them at all levels throughout space. And the capabilities of these things, as has been advertised to us in the past, is already far beyond anything that would leave us worrying about meteors rushing on us without our notice or capability to do anything about it. So I'm starting to see these stories as planted, which makes sense, because whenever you see anything out there, a lot, if it comes from your school board leaders, if it comes from your political leaders, if it comes from your religious leaders in the general sense of the Catholics, the cardinals and the bishops and the heads of these large organizations, you can bet it comes down through the Council on Foreign Relations. Essentially, it comes through the people who exert the power and influence on society, as has always been the intention, the plan. It's historically recorded. Again, these are not conspiracy theories. I'm not talking about some crazy idea about evil men sitting in a room running the world. I don't see it that way at all. That the men that run the world are in fact evil is just simply apparent by the outcome of the world. When I was young, we were going to feed kids. Now we just vaccinate them with 200 different kinds of vaccines that have been proven to dull their minds and, in fact, perhaps even instigate problems in their physical persons. So it's real clear to just trace the history, as we've always done with this ministry, for the most part, for many years, to track the historical record of what's going on in the Middle East with the players that are involved in what we used to call the Daniel's glasses landscape. When you look through the prophecy of Daniel at this end time that's revealed, who are the players that wind up being these 10 toes? Who are the players that wind up on the stage of history as it's being revealed? And so that's still what we watch on the Sunday gathering at the storehouse. For many years now, that's the thrust of that program. And this one, of course, is a Bible study where we're trying to delve into different books of the Bible and extract from them a deeper meaning beyond the traditional one that we've sort of just accepted. And I'm drawing that parallel because in the same way we accept these certain things from our religious leaders, political leaders, and it's because many of us have never had a chance to, get behind the curtain or lift the dress or even spend our time in this, debt slavery society to ask the right questions and track down their answers. We're actually the victims of what they call the Hegelian dialectic, based on the philosophy of Hegel, in which the whole argument is framed in providing the thesis, the antithesis, or the antithesis, and the synthesis, which is expected to be the solution, which for my money amounts to the compromise. It isn't really what Hegel was imagining so much, and not in the world of the politics they play it out in. But that has been the program, and again, this is historical. This is what these people. Let's talk about these people, because I'm trying to get to what's going on in America right now. Why is the Christian church claiming that an asteroid's coming? Why are the Russians claiming an asteroid's coming? Why is FEMA setting up all this emergency stuff and these drills that are are really out of context, aren't they? We're in a 13-year war over here. We're fighting terrorism on the surface of things. We really need, we're running drills in our own country over dissidents, crowd control, and we're doing it on such a scale that if you've seen any of the videos and watching what's going on, I mean, we're sending hundreds and hundreds of Humvees and other vehicles and some tanks and helicopters all over, these 7 states in the Southwest to perform these, training drills. I mean, wow, country's going broke right now. We're fighting wars overseas. We got this ISIS trouble, don't we? I mean, we really got time and energy and money to. I mean, that how important, how much dissidence are we worried about facing in the near future?
And why?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Come on. So these are just these little clues. I'm going to try and pull it all together. I hope I'm not losing everybody that we're counting on a Bible study, but I'm going to actually draw it into some prophecies here for everyone, if you'll stick with me today. I just really believe this is important. I mean, I have family and friends who are bound to be affected by whatever is coming. And that's the big question right now in my mind. What is coming? What prompts us to mobilize all these troops into this training drill? More than troops for me, it's all this equipment. Why are we moving so much equipment around? And why do I see footage of this this so-called prophecy in Puerto Rico resulting in the fact that we've shipped, the report says, 2 million body bags to Puerto Rico. They showed pictures of, cardboard boxes supposedly full of body bags stacked. It looked very convincing. I didn't actually see their body bags, but they did have a nice shot of thousands and thousands of plastic coffins designed to hold 3 corpses each. Were stacked. How do you call that? Like chairs that stack one into the other. These coffins were stacked, and then these were quite visible. You could see them, as far as it looked like a big, lot or building area that had been stacked full of its building materials. Just row after row of these black plastic coffins. Okay, is that all for effect? Do you just send that down to, it's all under of course, there's official explanations, and it's all preparedness because of seismic activity. So, we're worried about tsunamis in the area. Okay, so, we saw what happened to the poor Indonesians, so we're just being prepared and sending them 2 million body bags. I forget how many thousand coffins and millions of little boxes of dried food in preparedness only.
In addition to all the vehicles, and there's parking lots full of vehicles.
That's right, and then there's parking lots full of what look like, Desert Storm painted light brown vehicle, sand-colored vehicles with big red crosses on them and stuff. You can tell it's that sort of UN humanitarian aid kind of vehicles. But again, new-looking vehicles, expensive-looking stuff. It just, money's behind this, effort's behind this. Are we really expecting, again, the whole religious world seems to know that there's a prophecy that the comet's coming. They seem to know it's coming. The fervent ones know that it's coming in September. It coordinates with the red moons, and Jesus is coming, and it's all this very big hype, which to me says, don't get your hopes up for that. This is what they're telling you. And it's because Jesus isn't coming this month. We know that because the dead haven't risen, and the sign of Jonah and all the things that really matter have not happened yet. But let's get to at least one of the scriptures real quick so I don't lose everybody in the audience. Revelation 13, he shall cause fire to come down from heaven in the sight of men. I've always wondered, son of a gun, what does that, does that mean the false prophet truly has spiritual powers? Isn't that the way we've always learned it, people? Right? He's possessed of the devil, and he's got spiritual powers, and he really causes fire to come down from heaven, right? In the sight of men. Well, interestingly enough, to all of that perspective, I've been learning recently about plasma balls. I don't know if you ever heard of plasma balls. Been around a long time, you know. Our guy Tesla could have told us all about plasma balls and all this sort of stuff. But so it appears we've been working with Tesla's technology, which is not surprising and is not new knowledge. And so what we're talking about here is weaponizing. Just keep you abreast of the. Let's just keep these headlines here. Weaponizing space. Okay, energy-directed weapons based on Tesla technology. Things that we know they've been experimenting with. We know from the experiments already on film that Tesla did what he was achieving. You know, so he has that famous one where he has his light bulbs just sticking in the dirt all the way along his driveway, and then he lights them all up because he knows what sort of frequency to send through the ground to light them up. So it's not so far where, you know, I'm not talking about Martian stuff here, although a lot of the misinformation on the internet, that's the other side of it. Aliens. This is all the information from the people that were here before us. So funny how I thought apes were here before us. You know what I mean? I mean, really. I grew up all my life. Apes were here before us. Nothing was here before us but a bunch of hunter-gatherers, a bunch of people who, you know, discovered fire and the wheel. That's it. Teepees, caves. That's what was here. Oh no! All of a sudden, the new kids, our children's age now, are learning that aliens are, you know, all this technology we got was around here 15,000 years ago, which of course is much more to the biblical interpretation, only instead of pointing that toward the biblical interpretation, they're pointing it to all the ancient religions. The Egyptians, now we're all very hot on what the Egyptians knew because they were in touch with the people that came before. So it's a very big thing now about that. These, you know, either space aliens or other interdimensional connections with other entities, other intelligences, which all add up to really saying God. But we don't say God, and we don't intimate that it's the God of any sort of religion that we're personal with. That's the deception, or the, you know, the other side of this, that they're, and that's why I say that's what you'll find out there. That's the kind of, you either find the Christian world, which has been given this story of an asteroid, just like is on Russian TV. Everybody seems to know, which is really funny for a big secret. Everybody seems, all the Christians just seem to have it. They know the date. They, you know, it's.
Well, not only that, they know where it's going to hit in the North Atlantic. It's going to come right over the top of
Puerto Rico. And they even have a prophecy now to go along with it. So, you know, I'm not saying I know, and I encourage people to, if this stuff interests you, and I think it really should, because I've lived all my life, I guess this is the real nature, if we want to get to the core of the message, I realize I've lived all my life expecting the end times to be like a momentary thing, like going to the show, and boom, beginning, middle, climax, whew, that was something, huh? It's over. No, it's not like that at all. There's this whole prelude to it. Jesus told that what'll be the signs, Lord, that all these things are going to happen? Well, there'll be wars and rumors of wars. There'll be earthquakes in diverse places and such. But these are, see that you don't get too alarmed. These are just the beginning of birth pains, okay? Then you'll be handed over. We're not even there. We're not even where they're claiming Jesus yet. We haven't got anywhere near the rough stuff yet, is the truth of the matter. And yet, what's this going on with this FEMA mobilization now? with this sudden, war games going on throughout our whole southern part of the country, with, what amounts to it, what would appear to be an extravagant, exuberant amount of equipment for something like training our people for dissident behavior. You'd think they've been through classes like that before they even, came through into their positions. They've already learned sort of the basics. But no, of course, this is not what's going on. This is not basic training. This is way too much money and time and effort and exposure. Okay, so now let's go along with the jade helm, that they call it jade helm, for those that don't know, these exercises. Now, along with this jade helm stuff that they're just putting in position now, it doesn't even start till next month. They're just, all this information we're getting now is watching them set it up. Now, for the past year, less, but up until this past year, or I should say just up until this setup of Jade Helm, FEMA's been out building several large cofferdam style domed buildings in Texas, reputed to be storm shelters. And there's a news brief on it that I've seen run, where they talked about how anybody, in a tornado's path or whatever, these are places they can get out of the way. They're very odd looking buildings for storm shelters. You should check these out. FEMA Dome. If you look up FEMA Dome, you'll see what these are. They're quite a significant building, double wall cement, made to withstand hundreds of miles an hour of wind. They have an inflatable dome top, which shows you they're not really expecting anything to fall on them, like bombs or anything like that. They're not made for combat, and they're not meant to be. They said they're made for storms, okay? But then when you go to their official report of it, they say that they're for first responders. They're not for the general, not for you and I if we happen to need to run in there. That's not what it's made for. It's made for first responders to crisis, meaning when FEMA comes out to help people, they have a building to move into to bring their coffins, bring their life-saving devices into, and a place to operate out of, okay, that are protected from flying debris in an area. Okay, that's the idea. Now, several little situations with that make it a little bit suspicious. It's way south of the normal sort of tornado belt. I mean, it's in tornado country, but they built 4 in a similar area, which all happen to be in the same Jade Helm area of Texas, where these exercises are meant to take place. So this is a particular coincidence of this. They didn't just build them in like the hottest spots for tornadoes. They built them in this particular area of Texas that coordinates with this Jade Helm exercise, under the auspices that they're actually just built as sort of tornado shelters for first responders. Now, the other odd thing or another piece of this puzzle is that in this area where this Jade Helm exercise is going on, there, people have probably heard about the Walmarts closing. And of course, they have legitimate reasons to close and take advantage of, let's say, a period when, because of the Jade Helm thing, maybe it's more convenient for them. Who knows? Let's not just expect every move to be a conspiracy. Let's go ahead and just let the things be what they are, and see what the most likely story turns out to be when we add it all up. Just like prophecy in Scripture. It's real easy to grab one line out of it and set your whole doctrine up about it, or have a doctrine and grab a line of Scripture to support your doctrine. But how about you just take all the lines of Scripture and just keep letting that doctrine live and breathe and be real, so that when some part of it shows itself that you hadn't seen before, you don't already have some dogmatic structure that restricts it.
And causes you to miss it.
Well, or just causes you to force it back into a preordained position.
Yeah.
Okay? And of course, that's what I've been trying to teach on this Bible study for quite a while. Our misconception about death being final, about everybody that doesn't believe in Jesus going to hell. These things, that's not really what the Scripture says at all. We've just come to accept that that's what the Scripture says, and so then when we hear something, we automatically feed into that. And so I'm unwilling to do it on either side of the coin right now. I'm not willing to say the traditional view is always wrong, and I'm not willing to say that that the views that I replace them with are always right. I'm simply saying that dialectic needs to remain open to the Scriptures, and let the entirety of the scriptural evidence, as it continues to show itself, continue to inform us. Because hey, Dan and Daniel, it says that people will go to and fro for this knowledge, but in the end, the knowledge would, at the time of the unsealing, the knowledge would increase. And so, as Dad's been teaching for years, if we're going to claim that Daniel's unsealed, and we're claiming it for the reasons that seem historically based, it was meant to be sealed until its time. So if we see it in history, we know it is its time. And so if that's the case, then we should expect knowledge to increase. We don't know what exactly it's going to be, but it shouldn't surprise us to have some of our traditional views challenged. And a lot of the knowledge that's been increasing for me, in addition to my understanding of Scripture, is my understanding of the structure of this world, and especially my own country and my own culture, as it's dragging us or perpetuating history into the prophecy. And so that's why I'm wanting people to get a deeper vision of both the Scripture and the relation to reality, because they've both been clouded for us for so long. So I'm trying to throw out these bits of information, and then I'll see if I can't drag it all together into a point here pretty quick. Now you have these Walmart closings. They say for plumbing. A whole string of them, coincidentally or not, within the same area where they're running these exercises. They all close on essentially the same day, night actually, in the night, clean the stores out of all their merchandise. And you find out from Walmart that they're, from the official Walmart position, that they're supporting this, the government in this exercise, whatever they need. And they will continue to do so across the nation with like 100 and something stores. Something like that, I believe, is the report that I saw. And I thought, well, okay, so there's another piece of the puzzle. Walmart, of course, it being again, you're going to find, if you go up the chain of the money of Walmart, somewhere up there in the board of directors, somewhere up there near the very top, someone who's calling some shots is on the Council of Foreign Relations, part of that 4,000 people that are in positions of extreme power in the world. And so so now you start pulling all these different seemingly coincidental or
existing facts.
Well, conspicuous pieces of information.
Yeah.
For me, I've been, like I said, I've been watching this stuff a long time. Everything from I was one of the early suckers that got sucked right into the conspiracy theory world of, everybody out there with a website trying to tell it like it is obviously, facts that I can quote. Where now I realize that that's the whole point. Most of them are not. Most of them are fed their facts so that in the end, everything will be chaotic and the facts won't match. So now I look for, different pieces of information that all paint a picture, just like looking at the prophetic landscape of the end times. Yes, in Daniel, he says the fourth beast, there will be 4 beasts upon the earth. And that 4th beast will be like this. Okay, so that's it, Rome. It ends at Rome, 4 beasts. Let's get over it. Yeah, but wait a minute. What about Nebuchadnezzar's image? Yeah, but wait a minute. What about the little horn coming out of one of them? The four horns of the that come out of the one horn that's broken off. You know, what about the other verses in that same pool of idea that points to it points clearly to the Islamic kingdoms at this time that wouldn't have been revealed, of course, in, say, the time of Nostradamus, before you could see that the ten-toed kingdom was clearly the Islamic kingdom. And then yet even Nostradamus had visions of an Islamic Antichrist and wars in the Middle East and all that. And that, I believe that's why he's been dropped from our attention. He's another guy. Anybody remember last time mainstream media mentioned Nostradamus? Or, you know, I'll bet the History Channel, Discovery Channel, I'll bet you can find stuff and you go watch, and you know what? They're going to show you a bunch of very interesting stuff that he talked about, but not about the Antichrist. Mm-hmm. They're not, because he talked about a lot of stuff that came true from his lifetime in the late 1500s, all the way up through Napoleon, all the way up through the First World War, all the way up through Hitler and the Second World War. Very detailed things, but it's very easy, if you want to look at Nostradamus, to pick out many of the things he said back at the time about Henry II and his children and the jousting accident and the Pope that was a simple pig, a pig herder. He was like a friar, pig herder. And when Nostradamus, like they practically bumped into each other one day by a well, where the pig herder was going to get water, and Nostradamus got down on his knees. And the guy said, "What are you doing?" He said, "Yeah, you know, Your Holiness." Called him Your Holiness. 19 years later, that guy would be Pope. That pig herder would become Pope. So these sort of things were famous in his day even, right? And by the time that guy became Pope, people knew that this is the guy Nostradamus called Your Holiness. So you have Nostradamus being someone who prophesied quite accurately about the things we've been watching in Daniel. And yet I see this as part of this new knowledge. I never really realized Nostradamus because I'm not sure anyone ever showed me those prophecies. And yes, the Christians, to their credit, that's part of what they've grasped onto. And there's many Christian websites that will expound upon the prophecies of Nostradamus. What I found in reading them recently is that a lot of them are incorrect. The Christians are happy to take any of his prophecies that might have applied to Napoleon or the Second World War or some of these other times and apply them to the end times and the second coming of Christ, as if everything he said, just like they do with the Bible. Yeah. Every word in the Bible has got to do with Jesus wanting Christians, coming again for the Christians, killing everybody else. That's what it all says. Every word is picked out to reinforce that. So, no, that's so anyway, you've got back to this subject, because I want to encourage people. I believe we're coming to this moment I've been talking about, where we're going to have to take care of each other, where the real lukewarmness of the Christian world is going to show itself, because there's going to be a lot of people in need. And the real Christians who follow Christ are going to be the ones that put themselves in harm's way, give up their own comfort, go help others, go feed others in these catastrophes. And the rest of the Christian church, the one that are going to be setting up charities and making money off of it, like has been done. And a lot of that's because, I say, the leadership of these institutions has been infiltrated over the last 100 years. These are Christians, but they're Christians who have been bent to follow the beat of a different worldly drum. That's why they've become so lukewarm, and the sheep that follow them have become so lukewarm. So now, what I'm looking at is this crazy situation for the first time in my life, where the obvious hype and propaganda and misinformation is being followed up by real action. FEMA's building what looks to me like the kind of places that you need to protect people from serious natural damage, whether it's fires, ash falling from volcanoes, water from floods or tsunamis, whatever. I don't know that tsunamis, do they make it all the way up to that area of Texas? I haven't seen that, but I have now seen what they expect from things like volcanoes going off, what they expect from fires that come after these what we'll call for the moment comets or asteroids, which may in fact turn out to be magma balls, that these will spark firestorms. And so it just seems to me that these buildings are these impenetrable sort of buildings with yet soft tops are made to withstand floods, fires, tornadoes, all the sort of natural things that would seem that they're going to unleash. And this is the part now that there is a question. A lot of these Christian sites, if you follow them, they're quite happy to point out these Luciferian, satanic leaders. I think, again, they're being fed a lot of misinformation to distract us from the fact that our leaders don't have to necessarily worship Satan to be apistas, faith going in the other. Their faith is in money. That's all they need to, they're worshiping money. They don't need to be, slicing chickens' necks and, standing in pentagrams. Now, are there people who do that? Yeah, probably are. Do demons give them power? Yeah, they probably do. I have not had enough exposure to all that except to know the dialectic, the Hegelian dialectic. On one side, no. On the other side, yes. So there's this constant friction in the middle, and I have not been able to get to the bottom of that. But I believe I'm getting to the bottom of this catastrophe that's coming. That's why I think it's an important message today, instead of just going into our routine of studying the scriptures for their meaning. Why does all this have any meaning to us anyway? Well, we're trying to reinforce our own Christianity, that we are following the right master for the right reason in the right race, and we're trying to finish it. And I'm wanting to. I'm not sure if I've got everybody right now, because I know this is I haven't made my point clear, because it's still to me a jumble of different aspects of the point floating around in my head, but I felt it's important enough I want to share it. And if people have reactions or responses or things to add, well, let's get the dialogue going. But what I'm trying to say is that now that I'm learning something about HAARP, the capabilities of HAARP, these magma balls of fire, this Tesla-like understanding to be able to use waves of energy to do literally anything. That sounds far too vague. To be able to cause things like earthquakes by sending low frequency vibrations to the right place, focused on a fault line or something else. They've sort of proven this as far as things I've seen. They've shown that this is real. This is not sci-fi. Is this what they're doing? Well, this is the big question. But for me, it's starting to come into place. How the propaganda is all fitting into place. How people that had this sort of technology now for many years and are trying to lead people astray could put it into movies, could put it into playing cards. These have been around not that long now, but just long enough that once they realize this weaponization of space, once they realized this HAARP technology, once they knew that they had the foundation of Tesla's ability that they've been after, well, then they knew how they were going to do it, right? Because it's always, they're not just going day by day, well, let's see if this works, They have a plan, and this has been brought out many times. The plan, as I say, you go back. Well, we talked about this in the in the Sunday show about the Iron Mountain report and these think tanks that we're working on. How do you keep control in peacetime? What do you do? And this relates to our argument now, or our discussion in the idea that Agenda 21, as we call it in America, which is Agenda for the 21st Century, is another one of these modern things that comes along with all this new technology. Agenda 21 is demonized in the Christian world, as it probably should be. Its proponents, of course, imagine it's the way that they're going to preserve our way of life on earth. But the thing about Agenda 21 is it's based on this report from 50 years or so ago, in which they tried to determine how would you keep power in peacetime? How would you keep the population stable, observing that if they're at a long, prolonged period of peace, it gives them enough leisure time to become educated. And once they're educated, they may question things like fractional reserve banking and this aristocratic sort of oligarchic fascist use of their resources. And so they found that, if you keep a population at war, they're in their most easy to control state, because they're always fear the enemy that may take over. And so they're willing to even follow what they consider the lesser of two evils. We might not like George Bush, but boy, we didn't like Saddam Hussein even worse, didn't we? So, geez, as long as we don't have Saddam Hussein, we'll take George Bush. So I'm just, again, painting all these different elements into place right now, that in fact what they came up with in the 60s, 1966, in this so-called Iron Mountain report, was that the only thing besides war that could keep people focused like that or predictable is if they worried about their planet being destroyed. If they thought that the degradation of their planet was imminent, and now they'd be willing to take wartime sort of sacrifices of their liberties, of their living comforts and such. And so that became the birth of the global warming, the climate change problem. It became a problem or a solution all the way back in the 60s, because it was seen as one of those things that the citizenry would rally behind and would be willing to accept authority. And what we've come to see now is sort of draconian legislation. And it all goes toward taking away private property, because private property equals independence. So all of this, I won't go too far down the ideological road, but I want to paint another square in here, that in fact we have a system in which such things as Agenda 21 are seen as the program that we're headed toward. And Agenda 21 essentially comes down to saying, hey, we need to put the power in the hands of a United Nations embodiment, a universal embodiment that's worldwide, global in reach, that can help protect our Earth. So it sounds so wonderful until you see what these people atop the United Nations, who they are. They're the banking cartel of the central banks, okay? It's the same people that started our central bank, are the same people that started the United Nations, same people that started the CFR. They're the same people that are, or I should say the Bilderberg group, which was meeting long before them, are all CFR people. The Trilateral Commission, all CFR, these are all groups of these same people who have an agenda, and that agenda is to have a central control system, a military at their disposal to tell other countries, you can't tell us no. Now, people imagine, well, they would never use that for evil. They don't want. They want to stop war. Well, it's that's not been the history. Okay, it's not been the history. And if you listen to this past Sunday show, we talked about a little bit about that. So I don't want to duplicate all that. What I'm trying to bring together now is a bit of a caution, a warning that again isn't meant to scare Christians, because Christians are supposed to be anticipating this. Christians are supposed to be ready to suffer for Christ, stand in the face of suffering and glory in it, especially when they know it's the last days, the last moments, the final sort of stand. Well, then we shouldn't be scared. We should be encouraged. So please understand, I'm trying to encourage Christians by pointing out that these events really are coming down. And I've been wondering all along, how is it America feels it? Everything seems to be going on in the Middle East with Revelation. All these things are happening to those people, to the Jews. But I'm starting to realize the difference now. And it comes in the way of putting all these pieces together, of seeing a 100-year-old system trying to establish itself as a world governing power. I see the technology development out of Tesla that has enlightened them to things now that have resulted in this HARP technology, which it's absolutely certain that they are these people that run this HARP technology have control over the weather and are busting up these low pressure systems that have been traditionally, that naturally form across the western Pacific as they head for the eastern Pacific to dump rain and snow all over the west coast of the North American continent. There's really pretty irrefutable evidence, as far as, in my opinion, from what I've seen, that this technology is being used to bust up these low pressure systems, for sure, to dry out California. Why are they doing that? Why are they drying out California? I'm finally starting to see how all these things are playing together. All these are not isolated ideas. All this chemtrail spraying, okay? This is metals, nanoparticles. These metals don't just fall out of the air like you drop a tin can. These are particles that can't be seen with the eye. These are particles you could breathe in. They're so small. They're nanoparticles. They would pass through your coffee filter. So these stay up in the air for a long time. And what they do, the reason that they're being sprayed up there is because, and the reason it's primarily aluminum, is that just like the bottom of your cooking pan, aluminum is a great conductor of heat. It spreads the heat out. It moves the heat through it. And so when you've got this whole sort of area in the sky of these, like mist, if you can imagine, a mist of aluminum that suddenly gets hit with a microwave and heated up. That's all it really is. But that becomes like a punch out there in the world of air. And you can punch clouds around. You can punch the jets depending on the size of your punch. What are you doing with that heat at what spot to make air rise suddenly in the middle of a low pressure and kill it? See? And that's what they're showing that they're doing. So, and other people have been demonstrating now for quite some time the capabilities of this HARP technology to send the waves also through the ground that would cause earthquakes. And that this is things Tesla already worked on, that these are experiments that they've done. You can go watch them build models and throw these waves and shake the earth. I mean, they know how to do it. And so I've been trying to figure out, is this God making earthquakes? Is this, but boy, what a funny way. I've always wondered, isn't that interesting, these earthquakes in diverse places, this weather stuff. Why would you, the weather's always been changed. You got ice age, you got heat age, why bring attention to that? Okay, what about Revelation, calling down fire in the midst of men? Is he working miracles? Okay, so let me try and draw it together here before I go too far over time. You got this government, this dark secret government, who is the one who pays our government to be our government. But the real government works with Tesla technology. They work with a military industrial system. They work with a 6-bank central bank cartel banking system. They supported and continue to be completely integrated with the chemical companies like Dow and such, DuPont, that spawned Monsanto, that came up with these Agent Orange to help defoliate our enemy, and of course create a monsoon over them, which we did. So when you look at who we are, what our capabilities, what these stated goals were. I mean, they even made it this Illuminati card game, right? Well, okay, the Christians point to the Satanism, blah, blah, blah. I think all that is a bunch of smoke and mirrors because it scares everybody. But at the same time, the accuracy of what the cards depict is like these people laughing in your face. They've got you all scared of this Illuminati devil worshipping system, when the truth is they're quite cool-headed, money-serving capitalists, industrialists, Darwinian naturalists for the most part, eugenics. There's probably not too many of them that are these dark sorcerer, work for Satan. They probably hire those people. No doubt they put the money into satanic cult here. You conjure up any devil you can. Just make sure knows who's paying the bills around here. You know what I mean? I have no doubt about that. But the card's accuracy is pretty darn scary. And then you have reports by seemingly credible people that don't have big agendas. They don't have big websites. They're not out there screaming on the internet. They're simply caught on tape 10 or 15 years ago saying stuff that happens to be very relevant now, like this Dr. Rosalind, who points out, from her perspective, working with one of these scientists in the 70s, that, hey, what we're doing is weaponizing space. This is just horrible. Here's the plan. Here's what they're going to do. And it's all a lie. And they're going to have asteroids, and they're going to have aliens. This is what they're going to tell the people. Okay, this isn't, my conspiracy theory. This is something, someone's claiming it, that this is what they heard. So now fit all these pieces together. You've got the world scared of Illuminati, but knowing there's some powerful group behind the scenes. You've got the Christian world knowing that there's a prophecy about a coming asteroid that's going to do horrible devastation to the world. You've got the whole end times movement through the apocalyptic people, and while all this is going on as a background noise all of this time, now in real time you have the mobilization of FEMA, not to go rescue anybody, but to go prepare to rescue people. Not to go put down dissidents or crowd control, but to put all the machinery in place to do so. I mean, so something is going to happen, and if these people really do have that control, if something like HAARP can set off earthquakes as they please, or instigate them, let's give it at least that sort of variable. They can instigate it, knowing what they're doing, what their purpose is, and that they're going to be successful. Whether they can push a button and say, give me an 8.0 right now. Well, I don't know. We're going to find out. Now, I know I'm running just over time here, so now I want to tie this into my last idea here. We talked about Revelation, and this false prophet's going to call fire down from heaven. So in a world where asteroids really do come in and hit, and the guy in Puerto Rico is a real prophet, well, then the false prophet really is a satanic prophet who really calls fire down from heaven. But in the world I'm starting to see, where plasma balls are created through Tesla technology, cloaking devices, and all of the sort of, the holographic imagery devices, I should say, that have been developed, and we show them off at trade shows and stuff to show the sort of thing that the money goes toward, We don't show how far ahead we are, but we do show what it's done. So we know we have holographic imaging. We know we have, voice duplicating software, like to make the 9/11 tapes and such like that. And now we know we have the technology to control weather. I mean, let's not make it like now we know. Now we see how that weather control has been really perfected or honed over the last 50 years into something where they literally dried out California over the last 4 years. And this year especially, there is no snow up in the mountains for the first time in my life. Everything that's going on is sort of record-breaking, first time in my life stuff. And again, culpable, deniability there. It's just the weather. It's not our fault. World changes, ice age, heat age, cools down, it warms up. Who's to say it was always going to be the same? Of course it wasn't. So yes, of course there's this deniability, but we can see it in action now. We see the weather technology. It would appear that these earthquakes and tsunamis and such are being caused, which would say that he causes fire to come down from heaven in the sight of men. Well, now we know how he does that. Just like the UFOs. You look at these pictures of what they're doing with these plasma balls and these holographic imaging, and it's like, oh, there's your UFO photos. I got it. Okay. It does look like a white disc. It does look like light that's spinning or moves in any direction, because it actually does. That's just what it is. It's energy being just moved around with waves, being directed with waves. So it's really quite simple technology that's been brought now to a place where they can do these more extraordinary things with it. And so this fits into the Bible now. This is how I'm trying to hope I can tie it together for Christians, is that we know the false prophet's going to call fire down from heaven in front of people's eyes. But now, if whoever's here, we can know now what that means. He's not supernatural. He's doing this because they know how to do this. They're going to put on a show for people. Okay, now this is the last prophecy I want to bring you to that people may not know of, because comes from Nostradamus, who lived in the mid 1500s. So he didn't really have access to canonization. But let me just tell you that there's some websites, if you go out and study, there's a lot of bad stuff. There's a lot of websites that do not show his Middle Eastern prophecies about Arabs, about the Antichrist, about the floods, the comets, the end times. They talk about all his prophecies in the Napoleonic Wars and such. So, I think there's no accident to that. I think there's a reason we have not heard his name so much, and it's because he really was a prophet. It's obvious a prophet, according to the scriptures, is someone whose word comes to pass. So now I want to read for you one of these quatrains, because, of course, Nostradamus, who feared for his life because the king didn't always like what he had to say. The church certainly didn't like what he had to say. And so he wrote in 4-line poems and with a code. And it had to be decoded, which and some people claim a lot of it's still poorly translated and such. But much of it now has been decoded. Much of it's too accurate to deny. And so here we go. Here's something from my boy Nostradamus. So many evils by Satan, infernal prince, will be committed that almost the entire world will find itself undone and desolate. Desolated. Before these events, this excerpt that I've got up on the screen, I listened to this part, and I've been trying to find the quatrain. I've got an excerpt, but the part just before this part is he talks about this desolation, fire, blood, killing, looting. Okay, he goes through this horrible scene of of horrible, basically wartime stuff going on. Then the next quatrain goes, so many evils by Satan, Prince Infernal, will be committed that almost the entire world will find itself undone and desolated. Before these events, many rare birds will cry in the air, today, today, and sometime later will vanish. Now, I don't know how that strikes all you. The minute I heard it the first time and reading it over and over, that's a picture of the rapture to me, people. Before these events, many rare birds, the Philadelphian church, many rare birds will be in the air saying, now, now, or today, today. And then sometime later will vanish. Okay? So that's how I wanted to tie it in, that even in Nostradamus's, what I think is a clear view of the rapture, he's seeing these horrible events, the evil so bad that the whole world, and this is what's got me onto this for Americans to be paying attention right now, because they didn't set all this stuff up. They didn't make that card with the asteroid, and they know they are bringing it. They know they're bringing it. And if you go to a thing called Deagle, I don't remember if it was .org or .com, but if you look it up on the internet, population projections for the year 2025, unbelievable. Arrogancy. They demonstrate that right now the population, 2014 I think is the updated 2014 population of the United States of America, 321 million, something like that. Estimated population in 2025, 69 million. England, France, Spain, Italy, Australia, all the European countries. Puerto Rico, Venezuela, Colombia don't even show up. No people. No people. This prophecy, supposed, I don't think it's a prophecy now, because it doesn't appear to be from God. It appears to be from these people who think they're God and are going to bring fire down at their own time when they want to. And that's why it spread so thoroughly through the Christian world, that they've got people nice and panicked and telling them an asteroid's coming, because of course if an asteroid does the damage, well, then you don't have to hate these people. So it's imperative, I think, that they're able to sell the world on the fact that they're saving you, not killing you. But in fact, it looks as if they're about to wreak this havoc, which would explain the caves they built in the mountains, and it would explain the FEMA camps, which aren't there to gas people. They're there to keep the masses out from the 69 million that are projected to live through the catastrophes. I mean, that's how it all seems to come together to me. So many evils, Nostradamus said, by Satan, infernal prince. A prince, see, infernal prince. So many evils that the world will hardly be able to contain the pain of it. Okay, so that all really does jibe with the Revelation's picture of so much death and destruction. So I'm simply pointing out that if we know we're coming into this end times, I mean, here we are, our government would appear to be mobilizing, warning us, putting the word out, giving the cover story, demonizing and throwing everybody off their different scent onto, the Illuminati did it, and this and that, the devil worshippers, with no one really knowing who's, no one with that clear vision that they could stop it because they can see what's going on. But I think this is what's coming, and before these horrible events, but that doesn't mean before something like I believe the events are due to start soon. This is the urgency of this particular message, and why I hope people will heed it. That the things that are going on demonstrate that it's like right before the storm, when an animal gets that sudden rush of adrenaline. The birds start flying, animals start screaming or running the other way, and then the earthquake happens, a minute later. But the animals had the vibration or whatever beforehand. I feel like that's the way I'm feeling about it right now. It's just too obvious that we're coming to some trouble. Nostradamus is going to see it as the evil so bad that it tears the world apart. The Bible's going to see it as times like the world's never seen before. Fire raining down from heaven suddenly has such a different meaning. If you watch some of these videos of these plasma balls and what they're able to do with this radio wave technology and firing these plasma balls around anywhere they want, it brings to life all of that stuff. And so the confidence I want to bring now, as I say goodbye, is that even Nostradamus sees. I mean, we have promises in our own scripture about being taken out of the way, door opening in heaven, not being appointed unto wrath. All these promises that we should have confidence in, that these horrible things that are gonna happen in this world are not really gonna happen to us. I've just come to the realization that doesn't mean we're not going to see the prelude of it. It doesn't mean we're not going to start seeing some death and destruction on the way to that final 7-year period. And in that, I believe, is our final opportunity to be Christians, to really not run away and be afraid and be hypocrites, but to actually show the Lord that, or show the world, have that demonstration of our faith, that here we are. Okay, we're ready to walk through the fire, because we know how close we are to the gold that's coming from that, the gold in our spirit. And so that's really what I'm trying to say, is things would appear to be on the brink of going bad. And all my life studying the scriptures in the traditional scope, I thought it was all just going to sort of be good for me right up to the end. And now I'm starting to wonder that, yes, even Nostradamus says before these things, but he's talking about the evil that brings the world undone. I mean, God help us that we would have to be there through that sort of mess first. Before these things, some rare birds will be in the air saying today, and then they'll vanish. So anyway, that's the promise we're all hanging on to, and the way that we show our dedication to it, is the way I feel. The way that we demonstrate what it means to us to have that saving grace is that we're ready. We're ready to go help our neighbor. We're ready to go help a victim of something. We're ready to help our neighbor avoid that by sharing this kind of stuff right now. I know, because I have a lot of friends that I talk to, and yet they stay with their normal every day. It's so hard to break out of that rut. You're going to go back to your regular TV show. You're not going to go study HARP. You're not going to go study FEMA. You're not going to go study the satellites that are up there weaponizing space. You're not going to go study the prophecies of Nostradamus. I'm doing that, which is why at least I'm appreciative that you're interested. And so I'll keep doing the studying for you, but this is what it's coming to now. How important is this vision versus the vision of, whether I get the raise next week? I mean, one of the things Nostradamus predicted was this total economic collapse. That when I read it, sounds very much like the vision in Revelation of Babylon the Great fallen in a day, and everybody can't believe, they were weeping from the distance. They don't want to even get caught up in that mess. How could it be that all of that great wealth is gone in a day? Interesting, because it has that same feel when you hear or read Nostradamus's version. It's this sudden and catastrophic financial crash. So all of these things are coming, and if we get raptured before them, before the bulk of this stuff, oh well, hallelujah. But still, what's our position between now and then? Oh, I'm still just worried about my stock portfolio? This is what I'm trying to say. No, be worried about your neighbor right now. Your neighbor, especially if they live anywhere near these. I mean, go check out the maps where FEMA's putting its stuff. Go check out the maps that they've got for what they expect could happen. Worst case scenario, if these fault lines go, where the oceans will come after a tidal wave on the East Coast, or the fault of San Andreas knocking LA into the sea, or the other fault there in the middle of the country, resulting in essentially the whole Mississippi Valley becoming flooded. One great waterway from the Great Lakes, one sea all the way from the Great Lakes, almost dividing the country. I mean, they have maps of this already. These figures for population in the future. So, that future is only 10 years away, these predictions. What do they know that we don't know? Right?
They're secret.
Yeah, so anyway, I'm sorry I went a little long, but I thought this is an important moment. And we'll get back to studying the scripture next week, if in fact, next week rolls along in a normal fashion. But for this week, we got some strange things happening. Sinkholes and Lake Mead dropping, and the purposeful drying up of an entire state like California, which is going to render it such a hazard to fire. NASA says there's only 1 year left of water. What are the people going to drink? What's going to happen to the people? Why are they drying it up? Is part of the plan to scorch earth out there and sort of reduce the population that way? Or one of my theories after watching all this is they know they're going to create a tidal wave. They know they're going to create these earthquakes. They know that the ocean is going to rush in there, and they're just making it a little more. It's going to soak up the ocean, so it keeps the highlands from, give you a little more of a lower coastline. I don't know. I can't think of a reason that they are drying out California on purpose. It has to have some sort of cataclysmic reason, and it explains all the aerosol spraying that's been going on for years, that's affecting everyone in the world, elitist and bottom dwellers. We're all breathing that stuff. So that really stinks of desperation, doesn't it? They have to control the weather. They have to make California dry. They have to squash some of these low pressures. And I've seen footage where the superstorm, the Frankenstorm they had last year or 2 years ago, it was something where they were creating that. They were adding to that. They were doing that on purpose. So anyway, all of these things, a lot of the Christians believe in all that because they're really up on this sort of Luciferian people trying to kill everybody. But I really think it's deeper than that. Well, maybe not deeper. I think it's different than that. I think it's the greedy people that were the greedy people in Jesus' day, that were the greedy people all the way back to the house of Israel, that traded God for money and worldly pleasures. That's the Satan in them. Whether they happen to be people that throw their babies to Molech, or, like I say, sleep inside a pentagram or something. I'm not sure that that's really the issue. And the point is that they have set themselves up in place of God, and that all falls into the scriptural realm of it, and I know most Christians believe that. And so we should expect some of the horrible things that the scriptures tell us are coming to this earth, a time of trouble like never before. When you see the technology that they're marching out now, you start to see, for me, I start to see things of Revelation take life. The prophecies of Nostradamus start to take life, and this end time realization of what it is to be a Christian at this very last moment when we're going to watch it all come to pass. And so anyway, I hope that enlightens people a little bit, or people, we shouldn't be scared right now. We should be aware. Awareness is the key. And so that's all I'm trying to do. Anyway, sorry, Dad, it went so long. Anything I forgot on this one?
No, it was just fascinating, this whole week of study that we've had, trying to piece all of this together to separate the baloney from what could be true. And it did lay out a fascinating story that gives us a direction to watch for, to see if this is the scenario that is going to play out. But a scenario is definitely playing out right now.
Well, for some time now, I've been waiting for the 7-year covenant. I keep thinking the 7-year peace covenant is our clear indication that we're even at the door of the rapture, because they can't start that 7-year covenant until the rapture. So if we see that start to arrive in the political arena of them talking about it as they're now, look how we've gone from Palestinians were, in the Yasser Arafat days, which are only 10 years ago, they were just a bunch of, suicide bombing terrorists. They didn't have any bid for a serious statehood or anything. Now they've got a president. They're recognized by most of the world powers as a state. It's all, the rest of it's just a game on the surface, but the progress is clearly made. And so this is the thing that encourages me that, well, we know it's going to come to a 7-year covenant that includes the Temple Mount. And so that keeps getting closer. This other thing I'm talking about today is this is part of the revelation that's coming, the death and destruction that's coming, which I've always thought as a Christian, well, I don't have to worry about that. I'm golden. I'm just going to skate right from selfishness and serving myself right on into heaven. No disruptions for me, no starvation, suffering, no tidal waves and death for me to deal with. But I'm not wondering if this isn't God's way of waking up the church as well. Mm-hmm. At this last moment, to the realization that, wow, it's all, take our minds suddenly off of our job and our new car and the TV, I wanted to watch my favorite show tonight, and realize, hey, wait a minute, millions of people just died, and here we go, we're coming to the very end. So anyway, the real point of this is not to scare anybody, but to remind Christians that we have we're following a master that isn't looking out for himself. He's looking out for his neighbor and even his enemies. He's not afraid to turn his cheek. He's not afraid to dirty his hands. He's not afraid to love everybody, even when they don't love him back. So that's the real message. Love everybody, especially now. And please, people with family in those areas, you should, I'm just trying to tell you, take responsibility now. Go do a little study, stay off the television set, and go find out what's going on in the world. Not because you can stop it or you need to worry about it, but because innocent people are going to be hurt that perhaps you could warn through your channels of influence. And when people are hurt, you can already start preparing for what the Lord would have you do, to alleviate some of that suffering. So anyway, thank you if you've managed to stick with us this whole hour and a half. I appreciate it. God bless.